We're going to remove that. Save changes. Okay, I think we're live. We are live. We've been live. What's up, Tony?
What's going on?
Not much. It's a lovely Sunday here in New York City. I hope it's a likewise lovely Sunday for you down in Florida.
It's doing all right. It's getting a little hot.
Little hat.
In a number of different ways. It's getting a little spicy to still be in the swamp state. But I appreciate you coming to hang out. We're going to be yapping for a little while. One of the big things on my docket that I'll be working on while we're kind of sitting here is the cover for the first ZineWorks zine project, I think, from Stillfleet. Pilot
exciting.
Episode for Blister Critters, written by the lovely Linny Show.
I know them.
Yeah, good friend of the channel and the team.
Yeah. Let's see. We got anybody hanging out yet? I don't actually know. How do I tell? I don't know. I'm new to hosting.
Yeah, I don't know how to tell if people are hanging out.
Usually I make Wythe do this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, if you are hanging out, drop a line in the comments. If you're either on YouTube or Twitch, we will see it here. And yeah. So ZineWorks. I mean, I'm excited for ZineWorks. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to have more stuff on offer, kind of shorter little books and zines. I mean, it's in the name, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it'll be cool. We're going to be doing a lot of supplementary stuff for the games that we already have in existence, as Stillfleet and, of course, Blister Critters. And then, yeah, we're going to have some Danse Macabre stuff. I think maybe some Sometimes Kingdom stuff is a little drawn down in the docket. But I'm stoked because it's also an opportunity to work on just shorter, smaller, kind of like one-off games.
Yeah, we tend to do these like massive projects, and they're always like, "Man, I really wish we had time to just do something quick and get the dopamine hit of putting something out before 3 years have passed."
Yeah.
So it feels good to be like, we're gonna do some smaller stuff, and with the intention of the scope kind of being limited, but also to bring on some other writers and get some other vibes going for some of the different games that we have. And I think ideally the goal would be, after we kind of round out and add some extra content to the existing games, would be to actually start using ZineWorks kind of as a vehicle to put out smaller games that don't take 3 years for us to develop intentionally. So I'll just say, hey, we're gonna put this together really quick. It's only going to be 30 or 40 pages, and then if people like it, which I think is the model that a lot of studios or smaller groups do. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's some wisdom in putting something smaller out and seeing what happens. Which is kind of what we did with Primo Mors with Danse Macabre,
yeah. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think that was kind of it was a few things. It was us being very excited and wanting to put something out, and also wanting to do just a quick start. But yeah, I think what did this book land at? This book that I wrote, Primo Mors, is 60 pages total. So I think even a little bit chunkier than some of the zines that we're planning. But yeah, just getting something on a shorter timeline out there was kind of the goal with that. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting to have other authors come through, and yeah, like I said, I know I'm stoked. I have so many ideas for like shorter, smaller games that I've been wanting to do.
Yeah,
and, I think rightfully so. For our bigger projects, we've been putting a lot of energy and focus into that. But yeah, just the opportunity, for me, once Danse Macabre is out after the fall, after the winter. we get everything wrapped on that in 2026. Yeah, I have like a short, like OSR, like actual fantasy game that I want to do, which is very silly.
There you
And I
go.
think it'll be fun to explore that space and not have it be, yeah, not have the pressure of like a big maximalist project.
Yeah, for sure. Me and Wythe in the background are working on a an intentionally kind of smaller scale. Um, well, actually, I say that, and then now that I'm thinking about it, we're like actively trying to put together a grit system, like dream system, so that you can play
Hmm.
kind of like dream set games. So it's small scale in some senses. In other cases, we're trying to like build a grit system point 0.5 uh, to play these various different games, in which I think you have um, a game idea that slots in there somewhere.
Um, oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
You just
Yeah,
got too
it's
many
funny. I
to
have a,
count. Can't even
I
can't even
know,
keep track.
I can't keep track of anything anymore. Uh, yeah, that's right. No, years ago, before I started working with Wythe and with y'all, the lovely Stillfleet Studio, I was writing a game called Sleep, which is yeah, very much about dreamscapes. I was like I was reading a lot of Borges at the time. Um, so a lot of, very kind of like abstract, dreamlike
Hmm.
kind of writing, yeah, like Borges and Legati and all of this stuff. And I was really interested in the idea of like, oh, what does a Borgesian horror game look like? Where it's very much like set in mindscape area. So yeah, maybe we can revive Sleep to come back. I kind of that project got away from me in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
but I
it's
also wasn't
tricky
working
like
on it
writing for
with a
stuff like that.
team, right? Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Even
I mean, I
like
was
bringing
working on
Wythe
it on
into
my
the
own.
fold with Pistols and Pajamas, which would be like my iteration or my entry. This like spaghetti frontier. The general conceit or the initial conceit was like you're a bunch of teenagers that got to sleep over, and you all start playing some role playing game set like in the West.
Hmm.
But you all, like Rugrat style, you all show up like in your pajamas, but are expected to like take on the the typical cowboy role or the outlaw role.
Yeah.
Um, but like in pajamas, and it's evolved a bit from there. But realistically, it is going to be uh, a different kind of silly from Blister Critters. But I think that it is a theme that I'm finding in the stuff that I like will naturally make, as opposed to like stuff where I'm kind of like given like a task or
Hmm.
set out to do something a certain way. I think there's a certain amount of like absurdity or like escapism. I think that's inherent to role playing games, but I feel like I'm starting to like understand where I guess my tendencies lie there, and wanting them to
Hmm.
be like a certain level of satirically absurd, I guess, in a way, but
Yeah,
also a
yeah.
certain amount of like child, like not immaturity, but like childhood whimsy or maybe nostalgia is a good way to frame it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that in Blister Critters is the kind of uncynical but still very tongue-in-cheek kind of treatment of nostalgia.
Yeah,
Even for the cover that you're working on, right? It's a VHS
yeah,
VHS tape, which like for me immediately seeing that I'm like the 90s, oh my childhood, oh no. I think about the Star Wars box set that we had,
hmm,
that I definitely like wore the tape out on.
yeah. I had a handful of I'm not quite like I had a bunch of VHS, but I would say that I was on the tail end of when they were kind of like the thing to have and
Hmm.
super popular. At least like my childhood memories. The youngest ones are with like VHS tapes for me.
Yeah,
I had that
before disk-based
orange
media.
Rugrats tape.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The Nickelodeon tapes were great because
Mm-hmm.
that orange plastic that they cased them in was so distinct.
This horrid like neon orange, but it's also a really nice color, but it hurts the
Yeah,
eyeballs. So that's definitely
I like
something
it.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to like get across, and the especially the newer Blister Critters stuff is like this. I don't know, like you said, kind of tongue in cheek look at like nostalgia and that time, but and a lot of the writing and the stuff that we're doing, we're introducing this like third or however many pillars deep Blister Critters goes, of specifically the network having a say
Mm,
like in the games. So the network that would be airing and organizing and orchestrating, um, the Blister Critters show, um, like having a say and being a conglomerate of this company, um, and having that kind of influence the commentary on like consumerism and corporate
yeah.
structures and that kind of nonsense, has been fun to write in that really passive aggressive corporate speak, but like as a joke and doing it for fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting too introducing the kind of like meta narrative into the game
Mm-hmm.
because it gives you. I mean, it gives you so many possibilities that are opened up by. Yeah, yeah. I mean, what am I trying to say? Possibilities for GMs and for players to kind of like play in like yeah the meta space. And I think it also kind of head on addresses the fact that so much of our nostalgia as millennials of vintage, myself as a an elder millennial, quote unquote, um, and yourself as a little bit younger, like so much of our nostalgia is just fueled by corporate advertising and
Yeah,
by like
like
the
the
profit
Transformer
motive.
story of them just being like, we have all these toys, like
Oh
just like
yeah,
stuff like that is like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, people's entire like nostalgia childhood, dream state is like built on a bunch of dudes going, we got to make money with all this
we
plastic.
got we got to sell.
So, but like I don't know, I think there's a certain there comes up like how much do you dwell on that? How much do you like be
Hmm.
cynical about it? And how much well, I did enjoy Transformers, even if it was
Yeah,
like purely for profit. I still,
yeah. I mean, very much so. I mean, I remember like yeah. I mean, when I was really young, Transformers, Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles was
mm-hmm.
huge for me.
Yeah, I
GI
really enjoyed
Joe,
Ninja
which
Turtles.
like looking back on GI Joe, it's real bad. It's like
Yeah.
real bad. But at the same time, like when you're a child, you don't have control over that, or you don't even have like the
Mm-hmm.
critical thinking skills around that stuff. So it's like you can't really, you know, you think it's criticized, but you have to do it with a grain of salt, right? Where it's like, well, I was a kid, I like the things that I like, and this is the culture that was presented to me, right?
Yeah, you're really gonna go back and be like, man, I licked so many boots as a 10-year-old. Like, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, tell us about growing pains. If it's if there's not too much spoilers, or is there a elevator pitch for this first zine work?
Maybe this would be a good time for me to actually practice and work on the ad copy that we're gonna have to do.
You're
Um,
inevitably going to have to do. See, we have to sell too.
exactly. So, Growing Pains is a pilot episode for Blister Critters. Pilot episodes being the first episode, the first session, that GMs/producers would run for a given season or campaign of Blister Critters. Growing Pains specifically is one written by Eleni Shell, of Twice World Tales, and it's so in Blister Critters, there's like a spectrum of like how tonally serious or mature you want the game to be. And Growing Pains is actually one of being that it's the first pilot episode written by a guest, but also just the way that they happen to take it, it skews a bit gnarlier, so it's a little bit more serious than a lot of the stuff found in the core book. So that's been like a nice reprieve. Um, Plot-wise, the general overarching plot, without, I guess, spoiling too much, your burrow leader has stumbled upon seemingly uh, an endless food source in a time of a kind of food scarcity in this iteration of Blister Critters in this world, in the form of question mark sentient plant life, maybe.
Mm.
Um, and so the episode has you trying to figure out the source and the viability, and depending on the table, kind of grapple with that question of sentience and um, what's it mean to be a plant, but also be able to talk to some degree. And um, but I enjoy it because I run Blister Critters very goofy, very
Mm-hmm.
zany, I guess, on that spectrum. And so the answer for me is super easy, and how I would pitch it to the table is like, well, yeah, if the plant's talking, like it's like a person, like it's walking around and doing stuff. It deserves respect.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for tables that want to lean into the kind of more serious, I guess, conversations or questions, um, it's a fun one to have. We are working on in the background having plant critters, plitters, be a playable category, species. Uh, the actual term, I guess, is up for debate currently, but
Mm.
um, this pilot episode kind of acts as a soft launch for some of that stuff, and determining how we want to move forward and organize plitters into the Blister Critters canon.
We have
So
Aura Joestar saying Plitters would be cool.
yeah, we're excited about them. Where Wythe has been working on. I guess I don't want to give away too much of our future plans, but we have a couple of different um, flora-based expansions and ideas that we are cooking up
Yeah,
for
that's
folks
awesome.
to dabble in. So that's been cool. And then I guess a topic that you can actually weigh in on, because I've been on top of the Blister Critter stuff, I've been actively working on the Danse Macabre like core book and getting all that stuff laid out, and messing with the artwork and the like the ornamentation. And so I guess a question to you, um, and something that I grapple with in doing Blister Critter stuff, especially here where it's supposed to be a bit more grounded and serious, is how do you kind of navigate keeping it like fun, and um, like where do you draw the line between it being like almost too gross or too overly serious, or um, yeah, I guess those words. Like it would be easy for me on my end, illustration wise, not so much in the writing, the
Mm-hmm.
question, but the question, I guess, in terms of illustration, it'd be easy for me to like turn Blister Critters into like a kind of gory heavy metal. Stylistically, it would be simple for me. I don't think I should, but if I wanted to do a really
But you
wild,
could.
I could. Like it's what I do
Yeah.
otherwise. Um, and so I guess when you're doing Danse Macabre work, how much are you keeping that in mind where you don't want it to feel like the darkest, heaviest, most metal, spiky thing? Um, but I guess the question, I'm just going to kind of ramble on about it, but I don't know, how do you consider that when you're working on it?
Yeah, I think with Dance Macabre, I mean, it doesn't have the same. It's probably something I should put into the book, honestly, but it doesn't have the same kind of like scale of like zany to gnarly that's built into Blister Critters. But it's supposed to be like kind of OSR and dark and heavy and all of that good stuff. But I do think that with Dance Macabre, um, being grounded in real history kind of like takes that edge off a bit. Like, it's not like Borg or even D&D, or like any kind of like Western fantasy stuff where you have like big spikes on everything and things like
Yeah.
that. So it's like it dips its toes into like a very OSR kind of dark fantasy metal aesthetic. But I think that there's an element of realism that I try to put in with, like, you know fashion and armor and
Yeah.
items and things like that, that kind of like backs it off just a bit. I mean, I do think it's one of the more complicated things with Danse Macabre is, like, how do you make it, how do you facilitate like silly moments at the
Yeah.
table? And I think in my experience running the game, it's really just about like trying to gauge what players are grabbing onto, and what they want to be silly about, and then just kind of like leaning into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Like even
but yeah, I
thinking
mean,
about the playtest that we did internally, there were like
mhm.
a couple of points where like it was like serious, but then there was also like a lot of levity that was
Yeah,
like found even in the kind of like wackier like portions of not that episode, but that session.
yeah, that pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think also just like, any role playing game table, there's gonna be joking, there's gonna be horsing around, stuff like that. And I think especially in games where you have like really wild mutations, it can go either way. I do find that people like really find a lot of joy in the like body horror mutations that they get in Danse
Hmm.
Macabre. Um, and a lot of like the levity comes from people playing around in that space, or like putting their own narrative onto their mutations, which is pretty fun. Like I think in one of the early playtests I did, every pilgrim has been convicted of a crime in the game.
Hmm.
And I had somebody who, I think we took this one out, but they had the crime of forgery. Um, oh no, this was Ben. Yeah, that's right. Ben had had the crime of forgery, and he's like, yeah, well, I was forging famous artworks and selling them off as like relics and things like that, and like he had this whole backstory around just like fleecing the nobility in
Hmm.
Constantinople, which was it was hilarious. It was great. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when I'm writing for Danse Macabre, and when I'm illustrating for it, I honestly don't think about making like adding points of levity too much.
Hmm.
Um, the intent is for it to be like kind of darker and on the heavier side. But I think I know in the back of my mind that, like, people are going to bring to the table what they want to bring. And um, yeah.
Do you think that like when you're doing some of like the illustrations for it, um, I guess like how much are you factoring in like wanting to keep it historically accurate to like, well, I want this to look cool.
Oh, I mean, that's always the balance. But I think that's again where the maleficia, the mutations, kind of
Hmm.
can come into it. So there's for me, it looking historically accurate is cool. So
It
I
does
think
look
there's a
cool.
little bit of
Yeah.
a there's like a little bit of a bias there for
Sure. Oh,
sure.
I didn't mean to have them be entirely exclusive. I just
Yeah,
on opposite sides of it. Like it is one of the
I think
things
it.
that I consider when I'm doing like Blister Critter stuff. In that a lot of
Mhm.
the stuff in the core book, I tried to keep it um, somewhat realistic, even though it was a cartoon. And now I look
Mhm.
at some of it, I'm like, man, I wish that I had hammed it up a little bit. Um, and now I'm leaning more into having things be more explicitly cartoony, not just in
Yeah.
like the rendering style, but like proportionally. And I don't need their paws or their legs to work 100% correct. Um, depending on the character, I'll give them more like spaghetti tube legs and arms, and having there be also just a more diverse look. You know, not having them all be married to one style, but also looking to see Blister Critters as like a fun, I guess, challenge.
Yeah, what do you think? What are some of the conventions that you're using to tie it all together?
So one of the things that I've done a lot more in everything post the core book is a much more wobbly line weight. So like just being more expressive with the line weights. I think I have the old brushes here. They're also the line weight is also a lot thinner now.
I see.
So this here is like the old line thickness, and then now, so it just lets me be a little bit more expressive, add a bit more detail. But to try and keep everything consistent, I've been trying to find a middle ground between having things, I guess, in direct contrast to what I was just saying, between having things look too cartoony and having things still look like the animals I'm trying to draw. Where like here, I'm like, yeah, this looks mostly like a badger. That's what I was going for.
Very, very
But
clearly a
obviously, I
badger.
could have gotten like super into the anatomy of like, well, that's not really what their paws look like. Like they'd be a bit more long, or their nose doesn't necessarily look like that. A lot of it is the eyes. Like there's a lot of things you can do, like specifically if you're just doing cartoon eyes, where the rules are kind of made up. Like if I wanted to have them be more like this style, it would give all of Blister Critters immediately a very different look.
Oh, that's weird.
Like I didn't spend a lot of time on that, so it doesn't look that great. But you know,
well, no, I'm not saying it looks bad. It just doesn't feel like Blister Critters. You know, it doesn't
no.
have
So
the
you
same.
put the eyes back, and you're like, okay, cool. This kind of reads right. So that's like a thing that definitely makes things read more Blister Critters. A large part of it is my line work style, my rendering style of the starker blacks, but it is the colors, which is something that I definitely leveled up, in my opinion, from the core book. Insofar as I have like this palette here of colors that I basically use as like a painting palette when I'm going to shade now. Whereas for the first set, I don't want to open up my files and stuff, but let me see if I can't find one really quick. The first, everything in the core book was done with like 2 gradients that I basically just applied to everything. And it definitely gave that all of that stuff a super distinct style. But I think that now the artwork has almost a more like a rainbowy, more colorful quality to it. That the more that I do it, the more I'm like, okay, cool. This all actually feels like a distinct set.
Yeah,
Remember how
I
we were
agree.
talking not on stream about my file structure for uh, BC 2024 is a mess.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So here's some of the initial stuff. And so I guess you can see the carryover. I've kind of kept these like bean-shaped ovally eyes. Kind of is like a hallmark Blister Critters thing. There's still like these heavy blacks. Black as a color was a choice that I made early on for Blister Critters. So like I guess in other instances maybe the like this frog's stomach wouldn't necessarily be black, but maybe it would be like a darker blue. And it
I
would just
do
be like
agree
an
with
outline
our.
of it.
I
But
do agree with our chat that your color palette is mwah, mwah, chef's kiss,
oh,
and that
thank
you
you.
have leveled up.
The first time around I was definitely cheating a little bit with these gradient maps. So like here you can see that it's just like black to white and then it has the kind of orange pinky spectrum in between. but underneath everything, it's varying levels of just gray. So I was just painting in grayscale, and that made the painting process really easy, because I didn't have to I didn't have to do all the blending and make it look good. The
Yeah,
gradient map
yeah.
would do it for me. But now, that isn't the case. Now everything I'm actually just like painting on my own. And I think it gives me, let me get rid of these eyeballs. Um, just staring at me. I think now the way that I'm doing things gives me a lot more control over the colors, and it lets me break things up. One of the issues that I had with that kind of enforced uh, style of having all the gradients be the same was that it was hard for me to differentiate like different patterns or different colors on things. Um,
Mm,
like this kind of brown would never have been possible
yeah,
initially,
no.
or this kind of stuff wouldn't have been possible in the first one, the core book. But now that I can mix and match and use a little bit of color theory to blend colors together, and you know, but another thing that's kind of changed is, it's not as obvious here, uh, but if I can find one really quick that doesn't take 4 years to do.
Yeah. I mean, while you're looking for that, I do like that in the core book, there is this kind of consistent, color palette that's applied across it. It feels very whole. It feels very continuous throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like that as you're kind of expanding it out and moving away from the core book, you're kind of expanding that palette and experimenting more. Um, I think yeah, I just think it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it makes everything feel like fresh and fun on my end.
Yeah,
I get a
yeah,
whole
yeah.
new set of things to work on, and I get to do them in a, a more funky. It honestly feels more free. Which now that I look back, I'll just open up this, I guess. Looking back, I'm like, why did I give myself that limit? And I think it worked in that it was like the largest project I really ever worked on, and
Hmm.
so it almost was to my benefit that I had like an art style that was easy to accomplish.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, it would all just be like not colored, right? Like the line work really isn't the longest part of the process. It's usually the painting.
Hmm.
Um, but like, here's a good example. Like I still kind of have the oval eyes, um, but what I was doing was like, uh, the rendering is just a lot more detailed in the core book, I think, where like I'm way more focused about, like having the blisters have like this boily aspect to them, and in here like
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time like rendering out the shading, whereas now because I'm going for a more like ed netty like pro, I guess, style plus premium, I'm not like I could sit in here and like render out each of these folds on the jacket and have there be this hard sheen on the zipper and each of and I might have given the first the first book, that's probably what I would have sat and done, is made all of the fur tufts kind of distinct shading wise. But now I just kind of come in with a larger brush and kind of airbrushing through it to give it a really just trying to achieve like something that is more approximating an animation cell, where this looks
Hmm.
like a cartoon, but an animator probably wouldn't sit and paint this over and over and over again.
No, certainly not.
So,
Certainly not. I mean,
even this is
it
probably a little more detailed than most animators would want to do. So that's why I said like Ed Netty Plus. Like,
yeah.
they probably
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
sit and animate this frame by frame, but it's closer to what one of those might have accomplished.
Hmm. Yeah, the older style actually strikes me as like a premium comic book kind of
Mhm.
uh kind of vibe. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Well, I
thinking of
think
like yeah, like AAA stuff, DC and Marvel, where it's like you have one person do the pencils, one person do the inking, and then one
yeah.
person comes through and does all of the coloration and all of that stuff. And I think because of that division of labor, there is like a real, not all the time, in comics, but a lot of AAA comics, there is a real attention to detail, and like you're saying, like with the blisters having those deep shadows, and then the pustule kind of like sheen.
I mean, it was a focus of what I was to shade them. I'm like, I want to shade it in a way where it looks like it has stuff on the inside and then like a highlight on it. But super specifically, like not my rendering for the blisters now is I draw the shape, I fill it in black, I erase a little bit, and then I add white on one part and a different color on the bottom highlight. And then that's like it saves me time rendering, but also it just makes things feel more cohesive. And so that, I guess that would be like another like newer staple of the style that I tried to like marry across the different iterations.
Well, and honestly, it still feels like a sack full of liquid. It still has that feeling to it without having to like spend so much time rendering, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and even the newer like lining style keeps me moving quicker because it's intentionally a bit messier. It could be a little bit, like, to criticize myself a little bit, it could be a little bit messier still. I definitely have the digital illustrator habit of like zooming in like this to clean stuff up, and it doesn't matter. Like, if anything, it probably adds a little bit of texture to have it be a little bit like frayed or in some. Now there's times where it doesn't look good. There's times where you're like, oh, they probably should have erased that when it goes to print and there's like a little black speck. Like, I haven't found any, but I'm sure that somewhere in the core book there's a speck that I missed that I'll find eventually.
I'm so guilty of the hyper zoom. It's bad. It's really bad. Because sometimes I'll do it, and like with my style of illustration, where it's like I am direct influenced by like Kentaro Miura and other manga artists, and so I'm using like really heavy line work and all of that shit for shading. And there will be times where I like zoom in really close, and I'll do some lines, I'll do some shading stuff, and then I zoom out, and it's like, oh, you can't even that.
It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't look like anything.
Yeah.
Like, I just spent 10 minutes like really detailing this out, and then you zoom out to like the 100% of like, actually holding, like in my case, an A5 book, and it's just like that detail does not matter. It's just going to be blurred.
Time on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Very guilty of
things like that in Blister Critters, but I think even more so for Danse Macabre, that is a thing where it's like, maybe we should squint a little bit and be like, all this isn't necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, working on the illustration for the Reliquary. I caught myself earlier today doing that, where it's just like, God damn it, I have to remember. Like, it's actually quite freeing. This. Yeah, no one's gonna see it, and it's quite freeing just to be like, I'm gonna keep this at like a like, at most a 50% zoom, and just like, go from there. So I mean, that's even like fucking basic undergrad training that I had when I was a photo major, which is like, edit your photos at 50%. If you zoom in, it's not going to matter. Like, most of the time when people are looking at a photograph, they're like, you're looking at it on a screen in Photoshop, it's going to be roughly 50 to 60% of the total size, right?
Also, nobody is going to look at your work the way that you do, like closely or squint as hard at it. Like, most people. And like, that's not a bad thing. Like, I do it when I flip through other RPG books where I'm like, oh, that's a nice illustration. Next. Like, I'm not like zoomed away in,
I might be a little bit of a freak because I will like really get close to stuff. Which again, I think is a habit of being an undergrad photo major, of like going to gallery shows and like putting my nose like a centimeter up to the print and being like, let me see, what are we using here? What was your film speed, buddy?
There is stuff like that where like I want to know how somebody like made something like style wise, and sometimes there's good information out there, and sometimes you just see an artist that has like a wacky technique, or they're just able to pull off some kind of like texture or something, and you're like, I don't know. I don't know how they achieved that, and sometimes that's cool. Sometimes it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
But for Blister Critters, I've been doing. There's a lot of websites that are like, we've scanned in every background. Like there's there's a website that's just like pages and pages of Ed, Ed and Eddie backgrounds, like of the painted artwork, no characters on them. It's just the background. And so I've looked at that stuff for a lot of the cards that I've actually been doing um, for Blister Critters, the new cards, which is also a cool. Where did it go? There we go. I think I'm sharing my whole screen, so it'll just show up some of the stuff here. But like
Tony's file organization.
just don't look too hard. But background work is something that I struggled with in the initial book a bit, and so with the kind of stylistic change up, and it's not that big of a change up, but enough for me to feel like it is. There's like this freedom that was granted to just have it be like a solid, color, or at least a monochrome background with just line work on top, and it looks good. Like because it hits the style, because it hits like the brief essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry too much about some of the stuff I might have worried about the first time around. So like here specifically, like I have this big foreground character, black line work, yada yada yada. But then the background is just pink wash with the darker pink, like kind of outline over it. Kind of similar here, where big foreground character, and then the background is a bit more subdued, super loose. Like structurally, I would not have drawn it this way in the first book. Even the bike is a lot like looser and vibier.
Yeah.
Than I would have drawn in the first book. Same, so all of the cards, but this is almost before I made the hard shift. This like sushi glyph that will probably get a redraw just because I think it looks cool. But even here, I'm using the older line work, and that it's like single weight.
Yeah, a little thicker, a little bit less expressive in the line work itself. Yeah.
This is also
Let's
a
see.
remnant of that too. Oh, so here's a super obvious redraw that I did with the older style, but with like newer colors.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I want to make it look nicer, and so then I went in and I actually like colored it and messed with it and made sure.
Let's see. We do have a question. Actually, I missed. So, Aura, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are from the Discord, but Aura Joestar did ask earlier, or did mention earlier, that they would love to see both techniques that you've used for Blister Critters on the same image. I think this actually hits that mark.
Yeah, there we go.
But they also asked, oh, it's Jeff. What's up, Jeff? I didn't realize this was your Twitch name. Jeff also asked if it is crushing when you ask and it's unintentional, and by that they mean how the author came up with or achieved a specific effect.
When I ask, or when someone asks me?
I
guess I can answer both.
Yeah. Let's go for both.
I don't mind asking other artists how they did a thing. Maybe some artists bristle at that idea, but they shouldn't. Don't gatekeep artwork. That's silly.
Yeah, it's very silly.
So then to flow into my answer, if someone asks me how I did a thing, if I have the time, I'll tell them. I don't really do anything super complicated. So like one of the things that's happening in these images that I haven't really carried over is I usually add it at the end of everything, but these images have a really heavy like noise that's like dropped on top of it. I don't know how well it picks up in the stream. The video quality might not be that nice. But it might not be sharp enough. But the noise is not here. I think hopefully that's apparent. But between these two stylistic changes, this one has a really heavy noise, kind of just dropped on top of the whole thing. But But something that I also did, which is time intensive, and so I usually only do it when I'm ready to do like a final export, is I'll blur the line work, and it gives it like a, I don't know, like a printed quality, or it makes it feel less digital. Um,
Mm.
and so like I don't know how well I can zoom in here. Like all of this line work is kind of like fuzzy and chunky. Um, but if I, well, let me just go to the next one. If I zoom in, you should be able to see pretty clear. There's like a heavy noise going on, but there's also
Yeah.
like a little bit of blur on the line. I can do that. I'll do that with this one. Um, there's a couple of ways that I've gone about it, but I think the easiest way that's like non-destructive and not super time intensive is just to add a layer effect um, and have it be outer glow, but not all this stuff. So just the normal outer glow, not with a ton of noise. Um, and you probably just set it to like 2 or 3 pixels. It's something that I have it saved on a different file, so this might not be exactly what I'm going for. But even here, like super crisp on the lines, and then adding the glow just kind of softens it in a way
Mm.
that, for whatever reason, is kind of appealing. Um, I'll turn it on and off, do the on-off switch a little bit, but um,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is a way to kind of level stuff up a little bit. Um, I think I have a dedicated noise file. Um, yeah, that I would want to set here. And then I think I just set it to soft light and then like 30. I think I ended up tuning down how noisy I wanted the images to look. But like between the two, like it just adds a like a texture to everything that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah,
them
it
a
gives it a
little less digital.
really
So if I
nice
turn them
texture.
off, like I'm still really happy with the artwork, but like the turning it on gives it I don't know, an extra depth.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to cheat, like having that kind of stuff in there. It is kind of CRT like.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's a good point.
a way to, like, I've messed with doing it to where it had the um so like a Photoshop hack, I guess. You can do you can't do multiple outer glows, but you can do multiple drop shadows, and if you don't have the distance at anything, it'll just essentially be like an outer glow.
Yeah.
Um, and I've tried to set it up to where it has the kind of like red and blue like shift to it. There's a specific word for it that's not coming to mind. Um, it's not wanting to do it for me now. I'll have to mess with it some other time. But um, yeah, there's a bunch of like little things like that um, some of them I did for the first book, but for the most part, what I was doing was really just having this gradient over everything, and a lot of the initial artwork is just black and white underneath the mess of everything.
The
Um,
gradient map.
yeah, and I just throw the gradient map on top of it. I think the cover of this might be a good way to show it too. Um, so like yeah, the background is like just kind of green and gray, and then when I turn the blue gradient on, it makes it look nice. But then like this is the underpainting essentially that's going on for this main illustration, where all these really ugly colors, but because they're all going to get masked up by this, it pulls them all in to a more
Mm.
appealing image. Which is not something that I really worry about now. It honestly is. it's harder in some ways, but easier in others. But I think that the end result, the payoff of having it all look to me nicer, more colorful, is like worth it. But then also what I'm kind of messing with in all the BC2 stuff, everything post the book, is really just in line with the new line work, and the color is like not sticking to like too many rules, like sticking to enough rules that it looks like Blister Critters, but also just like if I want to do a thing and it's going to look good, as long as it doesn't like stand out as like, I don't know, wackily out of place. Like this is going to be a pain to show. I'm working on the Danse Macabre stuff.
Yeah.
So not this, but if I open up.
That's a special sneak preview.
Oh, wrong way. All I'm really trying to show, because I don't want to give away the whole thing here. Don't look at any of that. But I have like this kind of like filigree background stuff. Like I probably wouldn't have really done it this way. But in making growing pains and in laying it out, I was like, oh, I want this to look and feel like a when I don't have too many of them anymore. I have different kinds now. But one of the things I like to do is get like thrifted plant like garden books.
Yeah.
And scan
I was going to
like,
say this has a very 1970s gardening how-to book feel to it.
Yeah, that's literally what I wanted out of it, was for it to hit that feel. Even in maybe there's something to be said for like, well, the cover's a VHS, and the inside, yeah, that's fine. But
don't worry about it.
like down to the the font choice. I won't scroll through the book there, but I don't know. So with all the Blister Critter stuff, like my biggest thing has been like, just if it's gonna look good, there's no reason to place this like impossible rule to follow on it. Just make it look nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it made sense in the book in the first, BC1, if we want to have like a timeline. I think it made sense to have those restrictions in BC1 because it's like a focus, right? You can't kind of step outside of these boundaries, and it actually allows you to be a little bit more creative. Just because you have that limited palette, you have like limited line work kind of thing. But it is cool to see that that you're feeling comfortable stepping out of that and expanding it out, and it all still feels contiguous. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like it's not Blister Critters. And
I think again it's one of those things where like no one's really going to look at your artwork as closely, or as like no one's thinking about it. Some people do, but like for the most part, most people coming to it aren't like, man, Tony really started drawing the blisters differently come BC2. We really fell off. Like, no, it's not.
I prefer the original blisters.
Yeah. And like maybe some people somewhere, and honestly, if they were that worried about it, that's a bonus in my book for people to care that strongly about it.
I'm also thinking about like, animated shows that last more than 1 or 2 seasons. Like the style changes over time. That's what happens. You look at the first season of SpongeBob versus the latter seasons of SpongeBob. They look like entirely different shows.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the same with Simpsons. It's the same with Family Guy. It's the same, like anything that runs for more than a couple of seasons. And maybe some of the Cartoon Network stuff was a little bit more consistent, like Jenny Tartakovsky's stuff with like Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls. Those stayed pretty static as I'm remembering it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's natural for it to change and for it to grow over time. Or sometimes drastic, like Johnny Test or Dragon. I don't know those shows, Jeff, actually. I think that's after my time. Johnny Test sounds familiar.
Johnny Test was sometime after. I think my brothers were watching Johnny Test.
Is it post 9/11?
Oh, yes.
All right, that's why I don't know it.
Is that when you stopped watching cartoons? You're like, the world is too serious. I can't deal with this folly anymore.
I do think that's when that was around the time that it was a freshman in high school, when the towers went down. Fuck. Um, yeah, I was a freshman in high school, so it was like a time that I stopped watching. Yeah, I put away childish things, which is not true
Yeah,
at all. I just started watching more anime and stuff around that
there you
time.
go.
So I think I moved away from like Cartoon Network or kind of like specifically American animation and cartoon for a minute. You always come back to it, but I do think that there's like maybe like a 5 or 6 year gap in my knowledge of like American cartoons during the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've tried like it's really hard though, unless you want to like torrent stuff, which I don't have the time or patience for. But it's
Hmm.
difficult to like find older cartoons to just like watch unless you have
Yeah,
like a cable subscription, unless you're like actively subscribed. Like even on the depending on which you know streaming subscription you have, there's a bunch of cartoons that are definitely like available. Um, but what I want is just the ability to put on like Cartoon Network, but from 2002, and just have it play.
just have it
And there used
run.
to be stuff for that, but it just doesn't do it anymore.
I
Um,
am
but
putting I am putting a link in the chat for WCO.TV, which is Watch Cartoons Online. Um, they have much shit on here. It's not the same as having like a programming block, of course, but
maybe it has like a randomizer. That's all I want. I just want them to like just play random videos. Like I don't want to have to like set up a playlist of like I want to watch these episodes of Johnny Bravo. I just want it
right.
to like
Johnny
play an episode of
Bravo.
Johnny Bravo, play an episode of Dexter. Like that's all I need for it to. Can't things just cater specifically to my needs, Chris?
I'll
Is it
get on
really
that.
too much to ask?
I mean, there's my one of my close friends here in New York, Rhodey. Whenever I go over to his and his partner Drip's apartment, we'll go on to watch cartoon online, and we just do a game where like we'll scroll randomly as fast as
Mm-hmm.
possible, and then one of us will say stop. And the deal that we've made with ourselves is that whatever we land on, we have to watch at least one episode of. And if it's really bad, that's fine. We'll find something else. We'll randomize it again.
Yeah,
Um, but it's led to some surprising discoveries.
there's a
Forget
lot
the
out there.
There's so much out there. I forget the name of the show, but we watched this one. We watched a couple of episodes of this, like honestly pretty bad Adobe Flash Canadian cartoon from like 2005 or 2000. Oh no, it was from 2008. About this like middle school girl who has an anonymous advice column.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible, but so like, it was interesting to see like oh what were they making in Canada at that time. I don't know anything about Canadian cartoons. Our neighbors to the north are a mystery to me.
Do
Oh,
you have a
Jeff is saying that Twitch has channels like what you're asking for, Tony, but specifically for like Sentai, Masked Hero, Common Rider
Ooh,
kind of stuff. I,
yeah.
I I would bet that there is somebody on Twitch that's just doing like old school cartoon blocks. I would
Yeah,
not doubt
there
it.
are on YouTube. There are videos that are like an hour of Cartoon Network from 2005, but it's mostly commercials. And I don't know if like there's been a couple of times where like I'll sit down uh, and just scrolling through YouTube like with my girlfriend on the couch, and I'll put on like an hour of commercials from 2003. And the first like 5 minutes is like, oh, that's wacky. Oh, I remember that. And then you're like, it's just an hour of solid commercials. I don't.
Yeah, it's
There
still
used to be something
commercials.
to break these up. Yeah, exactly. It's still just ads running for products I can no longer buy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh man. Uh, yeah, that's I. I think that that's something that there's not the same appreciation for commercials anymore. Like I remember back in the 90s, there used to be like TV shows that were like the best commercials of the year, or things like that, where it was just
Yeah.
like, all of the funniest commercials put into a compilation, and they would still cut that with commercials.
Yeah, well, they got to make their money too.
Yeah. I see Johnny Test was also Canadian from around the same era. Let me see if I can find the name of this terrible show. Canadian middle school advice cartoon. Oh, what is it? What was it? Oh yeah, now that I'm looking, Canada had some weird cartoons. Where was Code Lyoko made? I feel like that's Canadian.
I do feel like that's Canadian. Maybe just because it's weird though, not because it's actually Canadian.
Wait, Arthur is Canadian? Wow, I had no idea.
They duped us the whole time.
The whole fucking time. What is the name of the show? I don't know. I'm not going to find it.
There was a period of time when I was first working on like Blister Critters and kind of getting stuff together for it, where I was like, I'm doing research. I'm gonna watch 2 hours of a cartoon and then have lunch, and then I'll just watch another cartoon for a couple of hours. And I'm like, I'm working. This is me. This is me getting
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
done.
It's research.
Yeah, it's research.
That's like when I'm doing my taxes and I write off like Netflix and shit. It's like, oh, it's cultural research.
Exactly.
Every single entertainment thing that I buy, I write off because it's cultural research.
It is. IRS, if you're listening.
Not lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, I see that now. Just looking through this list, a lot of American cartoons are partially produced in Canada. Like I didn't know that Reboot was Canadian. That's crazy to me. That was a seminal show for me. Was Reboot.
I don't think I ever watched it.
Oh, it's so bad. I think that it would be unwatchable by today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of the, if I remember correctly, it was one of the first fully 3D television shows.
Okay.
And it
So
like
bad.
takes place. Yeah, it takes place inside of a computer,
Mm-hmm.
where I think the bad guy is like a virus or something like that. But it's like, it's like anthropomorphized kind of concepts from computing, that get turned into the heroes.
One of my earliest, well, like I watched a lot of cartoons growing up. I have a really distinct memory of being at like a daycare center. So I had to I don't even know if I was in like elementary school yet, or maybe I was, I don't know, but I was super super young. And when we would take, so I guess I was young because now the next part of the story is when they would tell us to take a nap. Um, the older kids would get to watch TV and eat pizza while we napped, but like mere feet away. It wasn't like they got put to a different room. Like we were told, go to
Right.
sleep. These kids are going to have pizza and watch Yu-Gi-Oh. And so I
Yeah,
distinctly
right.
remember being like,
Like,
again, I don't know how old I was, but I had to be like 3, 4, or 5. Um, and watching these old, like 7-year-olds eat pizza and watch Yu-Gi-Oh, and like with one eye open, like what watching Yu-Gi-Oh, and they'd be like, you have to turn around. I'm like, what do you mean? Let me just get this in.
also, that's just bad schooling. You know, like how can you
Just
expect
torture.
how can you expect a child not to watch Yu-Gi-Oh when it's on a few feet away from them?
Well, they did,
That's insane.
and they've never been the same since.
Were you a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh?
No, I mean, like it's funny because at the from that story, I never really went on to be super into Yu-Gi-Oh or anything like that. I just remember like thinking that it sounded really cool because I was young enough to like not know what was going on, but that the
Mm-hmm.
intro was badass. Um, and I was into Pokemon for a while. I think like on the flip side of that, um, but I liked a lot of the. I used to watch a ton of cartoons with my grandma. Like we
Mm.
watched a ton of SpongeBob, and like some of my earlier memories watching stuff is watching SpongeBob. But on the flip side of that, a lot of my young memories watching TV is being alone in my grandmother's house watching like Haunted on Discovery, which is like now super fully produced like 30-minute ghost stories where like the
Yeah.
ghost kind of like the opacity flickers on an
Yeah.
actor in a sheet. Um, but I remember sitting there alone, um, and like uh, just being like 10 or 11 and being super freaked out. And there was like a really dark hallway in that house. And so like, for the couple of years that like we lived there, however long it was, I hated that hallway specifically
Yeah.
because I would flip between watching SpongeBob and then I'd go to the Discovery Channel and it's like some really now it looks goofy, but at the time it like totally freaked me out
No, I
of
get it. I get
a
it.
guy in a top hat standing in the hallway like flickering
Flickering in and
into
out.
yeah.
They always do like the jump scare thing too. No, I also have a lot of core television memories around really badly produced paranormal and
Mm-hmm.
crime shows. My mom is so funny. She is the sweetest, most demure, like tiny woman from Texas. Um, but she is also one of the most macabre people that I have ever known in my entire life. Like
Yeah.
she fucking loves murder mysteries. She loves ghost stories. She loves horror. Like all of this stuff that is just you look at her and you're like, well, you're just a sweet
There's
little
no
mom from the
way. Yeah.
suburbs. There's no way. But like she has a dark mind. She has a very dark mind. And when I was a young kid, I would watch stuff with her, like nothing like too intense or anything. It's kind of
Sure.
similar, right? Discovery Channel ghost shows and all that kind of crap. And my dad would always fucking prank me afterwards.
Well, that's what did
Every
it.
every fucking time. I don't know if I can simulate it here on stream, but I'll try to do it. So like I would like watch these shows. It would be my bedtime or whatever, and I would go brush my teeth and get ready. I shared a bathroom with my dad, and we had like a big
Mm-hmm.
mirror that faced like the opposite of this big mirror with the sink and everything was the shower. So he would get into the shower and he would like do this, or he would like come out from behind the curtain, just going like,
That's terrible.
just like
That'll
staring
ruin
at
you.
me
Yeah.
until I noticed.
No, I would not be. Well, I'm assuming you weren't a happy camper thereafter.
uh In general, yeah. No, no, in that moment, it
Yeah.
always scared the shit out of me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like small wonder. I remember like a year or two ago, my dad was like, "Why are you so into like horror and all of this stuff?" And it's like, "Well, look at what you did to me growing up. Like, what do you?"
I had to adapt.
Yeah, I had to adapt. I had to find a way to find like pleasure and all this fear.
Yeah.
Oh, what a troll! What an absolute
It's
troll!
funny because like I can pick out some of those like specific points in like growing up where I'm like, oh, that's where like I went down like that path. Like I specifically remember like I got into um like the kind of music that I like now, like my uncle growing up was like somebody like I looked up to a lot, and when we get in his truck, he would like put on whatever, and it really stuck out to me the one time. I really enjoyed listening to Metallica's Black Album, and I was like, all right, that's the one. And so at like 8, 9, or 10, I was into that, and then but very specifically, there was a day in 5th grade where my friend Joshua, was like, "Hey, come over here," and we were on the shitty computers at the time, pulled up some website where we could watch like music videos, um, and we watched Korn's "Coming Undone" and Slipknot's "Before I Forget," and just like interchangeably, just both of those videos over and over and over again. And then I was it. After that, I was watching Linkin Park AMVs, and
Yeah.
there's
Oh
a
my
very
God,
specific.
AMVs.
I can find it still. It's still on YouTube if anybody wants to go look for it. There's a how to draw Baby Gara video that has System of a Down's aerials playing behind it. And I liked watching the video, but I didn't know the name of the song. So if I wanted to listen to it, I had to
You had to
go.
put on the video.
Had to put on that video.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so like now, like I still listen to a lot of that stuff, but it spiraled, and I listen to any number of like extreme metal and stuff like that. But it's just funny thinking about like very specific inflection points that I can point to and go like, that was it. That was if Joshua hadn't called me over and was like, we need to watch Korn Coming Undone. This shit's crazy.
Right now.
Right now.
Dude, when I was in middle school, I couldn't escape Korn. It was just fucking everywhere. It was just fucking everywhere. And it was like, I mean, it was funny too. It was like really the like, kind of like, how do I say this without sounding classist? It's like
go on.
A lot of the like redneck kids I went to middle school with were really into like Korn, Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson.
Mm-hmm.
System Down, a little bit of an outlier at my school. I think I was one of the only people that got into System of a Down. But yeah, it was just fucking everywhere. You could not escape nu metal in 1999 to 2000.
By the time I was like getting into that stuff, like I feel like a lot of that stuff had kind of died out, and it was like a newer era. I had basically a decade-long Linkin Park phase. Like I had the backpack, I had the gloves, I had fingerless gloves.
Hell
multiple.
Why would you have
multiple backpacks? Now that I think about it, a couple of different shirts and jackets, all the CDs. Like it was.
Dude, you really were crawling in your skin.
For like a decade, yeah, up until about I guess freshman year of high school, when I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Oh man. What are you listening to these days?
You know what's really funny? I had this moment earlier where I was like, it's really wacky, the music change I just made. Shadows of Intent, or Shadow of Intent, just put out a new album. It's just like crazy deathcore stuff.
I don't know that.
You do or you don't?
I do not know them.
Oh yeah, they're cool. Just like crazy deathcore, super talented. And I was listening to that, and it ticked over into some other album or something, and then I went, oh yeah, and I flipped over to Ultimate Manilow, a Barry Manilow compilation album.
Fucking go.
And I was like, this is it. This is what I flipped over to. I don't know if you're familiar with Barry Manilow, but it is like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Low.
Yeah. That's what I flipped over to, and I was like, this about sums it up.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
I go through like I don't know, I go through swings like that. Like, oh, here it's still open. But like
Ultimate Manilow is so good.
this is the CD my mom had. So when we'd make our drives to Disney World, this is what would be on, or one of the CDs that would come on would be Ultimate Manilow. But
It's
what's
so
really
funny.
funny is the other album that I've had on repeat. I don't know if my desktop audio will play, but we probably shouldn't for copyright or whatever. But uh, Zombie Sharks EP, Born from a Wish, is just like crazy,
Mm.
um, not hyper pop metal, but it's, I don't know, it's nutso. I would
Little,
recommend giving it a
little.
listen. It's like 12 minutes of nonsense.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
check it out. I love that.
so like this is kind of what I flip through is just here we go. My recently played. Just all. I mean, it's not that eclectic, but it spans the range of like indie rock and Midwest
Yeah,
emo
yeah.
and then crazy shit. Oh, I had a big Breaking Benjamin phase a couple of weeks ago where I was super into Breaking Benjamin again. I was like, this is
I
awesome.
forgot about them.
I haven't, but in
I've been
middle
listening
school,
to.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say I've been listening to a lot of ecstatic black metal lately.
Hmm.
That's been my especially the band Agriculture out of California. They're onto something. They're great. Um,
You mean stuff that
it's
just sounds
got
like it's coming out of a tin can?
no, no, it's got all the like conventional stuff from black metal. So you've got like your blast beats and shit like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know really how to like describe it. It's like hopeful black metal.
Okay. Okay.
It's supposed to like evoke a feeling of like of ecstasy in like
Hmm.
the like ecstasy and agony kind of sense,
Yeah. Like super
Um,
cathartic.
super cathartic. Yeah, yeah, super
Hmm.
cathartic. Not all like not always in like minor tones all the time, kind of
Hmm.
like switches between. Uh, yeah, it's great. I've been listening to them a lot, and then another band in a similar vein, Panopticon, which is just it's one dude. I think he's in Kentucky. I might be getting it might be Tennessee, but either Kentucky or Tennessee, and it's just one guy, and it's like really vibey, really dark, but still like yeah, there's a bit of like hope the other side kind of feeling that you get
Yeah.
listening to it. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I haven't dabbled super heavy. Like the black metal that I do get is usually whenever one of the bands I'm listening to like veers into it
Hmm.
from like the genre that they're kind of manning on their own. I've been really into. There's like a wave of um, artists that are like incorporating elements of like hyperpop and like
Hmm.
more electronic like sounds into the like absurdist, like extreme metal um,
Yeah.
that I'm really enjoying because I don't like that music otherwise. Like it isn't for me. But when it's like
Hmm.
blended in this way, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll go to a rave. Fuck it. Like,
Oh, do you
there's
know
one,
liturgy?
huh?
Do you know liturgy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Liturgy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorite like weird fucking fusion. Like I never know what she's gonna put out.
Yeah. There's a band called uh, well, I guess I'm thinking of a couple, but there's a band called Mirar, Mirar, and I think it's
Mm,
just one guy. I think there might be like a band that's forming around the guy that makes the music, but it is just like just absurd, heavy, spooky sounding like nonsense. Like I've been on like a maximalist, I guess, kick in terms of the kind of the metal that I've been into, because there's definitely been periods where I'm like, I just want it to be one note for 5 minutes and that's all I need. But lately I've been super into stuff that's like super energetic and like visceral, just not necessarily like in the music. I think a lot of music like that in and of itself is kind of like visceral and in your face, but I'm really enjoying stuff that's more experimental with the way that they are mixing. Like it doesn't just sound like every other like album of that ilk. It has, like I said before, like elements of like more electronic music, or it's mixed in a specific way that was like refreshing or novel, I guess.
Yeah, that's sometimes with like the many splinter groups of hardcore, I have a hard time differentiating like gorecore, where it just sounds like belching, farting, and vomiting.
Perfect.
It's like honestly, every one of those bands kind of sounds the same to me. And no shade. I know that there's differences and subtleties in it. But it's like,
no, that's a hot take that I've held for a long time. Is like for a lot of bands, for a lot of different kinds of music, but I think especially like extreme metal stuff, you kind of pick your favorite one that sounds like that, and you're like, this is the one that I like.
Yeah.
Even though there's like 20 of them that sound just like this is the one that I listen to. And that's just the way that it is. Like, just a lot of it does sound the same. Like, there's times where I'm like, I don't know who's playing. Like, Spotify will like automatically move to like a different, put together playlist of just whatever. And I'm like, yeah, they're screaming, there's blast beats, that's fine. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes one will catch my ear, and then obviously that's when I'm like, okay, this band is different. But like 9 times out of 10 for music for that genre, it's basically all just like the same stuff with like a different set of white guys playing it. Like that's all that it is. And like it's cool. Like if you're not super worried about it, just leave it on in the background. You'll get something angry and loud and riffy playing.
Yeah. Yay. Well, let's see. We're coming up on about an hour and a half. I think I should probably get going soon.
No, you're good. We can call it. I made some good progress. Line work wise, did a lot of yapping.
Always good yapping with you, Tony.
Yeah, I had a nice time yapping. I'm gonna go get myself some lunch once we log off here then.
Nice. Well, thanks to Jeff, thanks to Taylor, thanks to everybody who was lurking and chatting with us today. I think we have another one of these planned soon. I don't really remember. I'll have to check the calendar.
I'm not sure specifically. I think they're every other Sunday.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, so not next week. Yes, you're correct. Not next week, but on the 20th, we'll have another live drawing session. Maybe it'll be me. Maybe it'll be Ethan. Maybe it'll be Tony again. We've yet to find out or decide, but we'll be around. I like that.
I'm going to leave it like that.
Yeah, just leave it like, don't say anything. Just send it to Wythe. Like, what do you
think? Print it. Yeah. Thank everybody for hanging out, listen to us yap, and get some work done. Hopefully you'll come back in a week or two.
Oh, yeah. All right. See y'all later.
Later.